You're watching the Maryland Players Show on Fan Media Network. My guest today, my first guest on the show, don't need an introduction, but I'm going to give it to him anyway. Head coach at American University, Ohio State, Boston College, and the University of Maryland. 2 NCAA Regional Final Four championships, ACC Tournament Championship, 3 regular season ACC championships, a Big East regular season championship, and an ECC regular season championship. So every level, baby, and a national championship. Welcome to the show, Coach Williams.
Thanks, Walt. Appreciate that. You had a lot to do with some of that, so it's good to see you.
Oh man, it's great to see you. Such a pleasure to have you on my first show. I couldn't think of a way to start this thing off any better. What I want to start with, just thinking of the Black History Month. It just brings back the coaches that has been in my life, the Black coaches that have been in my life at every level. You know, in high school, Coach Earl Hawkins. In college, Coach Bob Wade. And in the NBA, Coach Darrell Walker. Those guys were just such instrumental parts of my growth. But I'd like to talk about two coaches that recently passed, and Coach John Chaney and Coach John Thompson. I know you've had a lot of experience playing against Coach Thompson or coaching against Coach Thompson, especially at Boston College. What was that like?
It was incredible. I mean, Big John was, he was, every kid in America wanted to have a Georgetown jacket or T-shirt, hat, whatever. And, Patrick Ewing had a lot to do with that. And it was just the Hoya paranoia, the whole thing, us against the world. And, the Big East back then, when I was there, 82 to 86, 2 teams won national championships, Villanova in 85 and Georgetown in 83. And so the league was really, a premier league on ESPN had just come into play, and they were showing all the league games. So it was wild. But, Pitino was in there, Jim Boeheim, Rolly Massimino, it was just great basketball. And, nobody thought that could ever happen in the East. You always had the ACC, you had the Big Ten, but the Northeast never had a conference.
Yeah.
And so Dave Gavitt, who former commissioner of the Big East, he had the idea that this could happen. But, he had to twist some arms. But it was great basketball. John Thompson, unbelievable. John Chaney, who just recently passed. We played against Temple a couple of times. The great thing about John Chaney, he just fought for everything. He was a very successful, I guess it was Division II or Division III coach at Chaney State before getting the chance to go to Temple at age 50 to be a head coach. And John Chaney, you knew he was a good coach because none of the Big 5 schools back then would play him.
Yeah.
So you're good if nobody will play you. And that was John Chaney.
Yeah. So, Coach, you mentioned some great coaches in the Big East and the ACC. You know, back in those days, you're playing it's 8 or 9 teams, so you're playing each other twice a year. So you really get familiar with each other. You know, coaches like Coach K, Bobby Crimmins, Coach Dean Smith. Who would you say, out of all the great coaches you coached against, who was that one you got it up for every time you just wanted to beat so bad?
Well, when after getting to Maryland, I stayed at Maryland 22 years, so I saw a lot of coaches in the ACC come and go and whatever. But Dean Smith was probably the most prepared. Anytime, and Walt, anytime you play North Carolina, they would know what board you would hit in Colt Fieldhouse when you hit a cut. I mean, it was unbelievable how prepared they were, and he left nothing to chance. And I think that was a big part of his success was he was so prepared that you couldn't really surprise him on anything during a game. He was ready. And of course, Mike Krzyzewski, probably, his duration, the length that he's coached, the championships that he's won, he was really good at getting great players, say a Grant Hill, for example, to be a complete team player. In other words, all his guys, Leitner, nobody liked Leitner. I don't think anybody on Duke liked Leitner. But at the same time, Leitner was probably as dominating a big man in college basketball. You could put him right behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or, a Bill Walton type player. I mean, he hit every big shot for 2 years for Duke in the NCAA tournament. So, he had that ability to take great players, and he did. He always had, really good talent. But a lot of guys get good talent, but they don't win. And Mike won with the players that he had.
Yeah. So, Coach, I just remembering back in the day playing for you, I remember the most those pregame speeches that you would give, and for me, going into every game, I felt like we were going to win the game. I didn't care who we played against. And your pregame speeches, man, you really gave that sense. You really came across as if you had that confidence. I've played over my career for coaches that try to give you that confidence, but you can see that they don't really believe that we're going to win that game sometimes. But you were never like that, man. Where did that come from?
I think growing up, I was small, and you'd hang around the courts. Well, you played outside. Guys today don't play outside, but that's okay. but like you hung around the court and you hope somebody had to leave or get hurt or whatever. So they hey kid, come on in and play. And I was always the smallest guy in the court, so I'd walk in the court like I was really a good player, even though I wasn't very good. But yet I had that confidence in myself, and I think I carried that over to coaching. I mean, I was nervous before games just like any other coach, and always worried. But I always thought my job, by the time I walked in the locker room to talk to my team, they had to believe that I thought we could win the game. I thought that was a big part of coaching, probably an underrated part of coaching. Like you said, we all played, I played high school and college, and I played for coaches that I could tell that they weren't very confident going into certain games. And so I just said, man, I don't care if we're 20-point underdogs. There's got to be a way we can win this game, and we'll figure it out. And, I had good players. They'd play hard, so we always had a chance. So I tried to exude that in the locker room before the game.
So there's a lot of times, a lot of things that stand out. But two that comes to mind for me in my career was after a Coppin State loss in my sophomore year. I came to you and said, I asked if you would give me a shot at being the point guard and Tion going to the off guard and seeing how that works. And then I remember, I think maybe my junior year, we were playing against Duke down double figures late in the game. And you called a timeout and you drew up a play where I started out on the block and then I came off a down screen and got a dribble handoff and shooting it from the 3-point line. And at the time, I thought that was plays to get back into the game. But after that, it became a mainstay, a regular offensive set for us. What did you see in me, man, to have you call plays like that? I mean, I know for me going into games, I felt like you just had so much confidence in me, and that helped me a lot. But what did you see, Coach?
Well, I just, you do certain things during the game, and I started to realize, and I think this happens in coaching, you go into a season with a certain plan, but then you watch your players, and guys change year to year. They get stronger, they get better shooters, whatever. And so as that season was progressing, I really thought that you were special and that we had to get you the ball because we were in a tough situation. We had sanctions couldn't play on live TV, couldn't play in the NCAA tournament. So I was just figuring out how to win as many games as possible right then. I wasn't building for the future. I didn't really care about the future. I cared about that game that night. And that year, you averaged your senior year, you averaged 26 points a game. You had 19 straight games, 20 or better, and 7 ACC games, 30 or better. So I wasn't a genius. I mean, I think a lot of people saw that potential, but that dribble handoff was really, now everybody runs that in college basketball. But back then it was really a way to get you the ball because obviously they're going to play you tight. They'd overplay you in the man-to-man, and that dribble handoff, that backdoor option's always there. So they couldn't really overplay. So if we could get you the ball in a scoring position, then I knew we had a shot. But, that sounds easy, but that's hard to do sometimes. You get pushed out, you get out of your area where you can score, things like that. But that dribble handoff worked pretty well.
So, Coach, I mean, playing for you, you can see how much you enjoyed the game. All parts, practices, the game plan, and all of that. You can see your enthusiasm in it as a player. What led to your retirement? Why did you retire? Did you know going into the season, or the summer?
Yeah, I was 67. You got a couple coaches still around. Boeheim is a year older than me now, and Krzyzewski's about a year behind me. But I always did. The game was great to me. I mean, I was a kid growing up. My first job was a JV high school coach. I mean, I was just went along, kind of feeling things along the way, and to wind up the head coach at Maryland, the ACC, all that, and chance to win a national championship there, chance to coach guys like you. I probably did as much as you can always you'd like to win another national championship, but you can always. I think I did everything, and I coached in the Big East, the ACC, and the Big Ten, and so I coached against all the great coaches of that era, and so at age 67, I had grandkids. My granddaughter is really a good player out in Ohio, and things like that, and it's given me the opportunity to do more with them. When I was into basketball, I was into it, and it was 12 months a year, 365, and I didn't, you miss a lot of things. That's the one thing I started to realize, and who knows, maybe I'm healthier now than I would have been if I coached 3-4 more years, because that's all it would have been. I mean, when you get into your 70s, unless you're at a Syracuse where you've been there forever, like Boeheim, or Duke, where he's been there 40-some years now, Krzyzewski. So it wasn't like that at Maryland. It was a little choppy, as you know. It was never like you just walk into the office, anything going on? Nope, everything's okay, and go to practice. That didn't happen at Maryland when I was coaching there.
So let me ask you this. You see the environment now, with the pandemic and things like that, no fans in the stands. How do you think it would be coaching under those circumstances with your coaching style?
I give the coaches a lot of credit, because they've had to be more than coaches. They've had to monitor the testing and all those things, and keeping the players up. It has to be tough this year, because they're kind of isolated in a bubble, really, on college campuses, and these players, they're kids. Kids are used to going out after a great win, and things like that. They can't do any of that. So I feel really bad for the players and the coaches during this year. This has been a very tough year since last March.
Yeah, it certainly have. I mean, things have changed a lot even before the pandemic, just the era of social media. I mean, that's just so different. How do you think things would have been different, or do you think you would have enjoyed coaching in a social media era?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. Coaches make more money today, which I'd enjoy that. But at the same time, I made good money. Plus, you didn't have to deal with that. That was just coming in around 2009, 2010. The cell phone started it. Then all of a sudden, the internet, and every player felt like he was missing out on something if he wasn't part of social media. Yeah. And those things can be dangerous to a team. Somebody puts on there, hey, Walt, you should get more shots next game. You didn't get coach is taking the ball away from you. He's playing you in the wrong position. And the player goes, yeah, that's right, and so you didn't have to deal with that. I mean, I'm sure there's parents, friends of players that, felt that way, but that was it, back in the day. Now everything's, worldwide, if a guy complains, he complains.
Yeah, that is way different. Who knows? So Coach, just to wrap things up, I started off earlier talking about the different schools that you coached at, some really good tradition at those schools as well. So how was it compared to coaching at the other schools as your alma mater, University of Maryland? Was it a special feeling there? Just coming in, or did it feel the same to you just being a coach?
Well, no, Maryland gave me an education, and I got to play basketball there. So that will always be special to me. And, I know your feelings about Maryland. You've given back a scholarship to the university, things like that. And, I think being a part, like when I left Maryland, to go to Camden, New Jersey to coach. There was no way I ever thought I would be the basketball coach in Maryland. It wasn't going to happen. It couldn't happen. And it did. It worked out. And I left a really good job at Ohio State to come back to Maryland. But I think anybody in my situation would have at least looked at that very strongly, because when you go to college, that never changes wherever you go. I mean, that's it. You went to Maryland, I went to Maryland. I can't change that. And so that affects you for the rest of your life, good and bad. It affects you the rest of your life. And so I had this chance to go back to Maryland, and things weren't good. I knew it wasn't good. I didn't know it was as bad as it was, but I knew it wasn't good. But yet I felt that, why not? Let's give it a shot. And, it worked out. But at the same time, I don't regret, anything I did in coaching in terms of where I coached. I always felt I was in the right place at the right time.
Jimmy Jackson's a good friend of mine. So he always used me to say, "Hey, man, you made Coach Williams leave me for you."
Jimmy, I see him once in a while, and every time the first thing he says, he said, "I was a pretty good player in college," And I said, "Nah, you were this fat kid out of Toledo." And he's the best, and he's had a great career with Fox and with the media. He's been great.
Yeah. Well, Coach, man, thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. And like I said earlier, I couldn't think of a better guest to have on my first show. So thank you so much, man. You are just unbelievable.
Well, good luck with the show and keep it going.
Yes, thanks so much.
To host a player show or appear as a player on a player show, simply create a profile on Fan Media's iOS app or website. Select your teams and make a short intro video on your phone. Show hosts, reporters, former players, and superfans can use our Get Verified feature and make an intro video as well, and our mobile newsroom staff will reach out.